Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Adam Sullivan. I'm the Vice President of AI at Labcorp. I'm not here to sell you anything because, frankly, you don't really have a choice. If you need to get blood work done, you're going to end up at a lab one way or the other. Before we get started, though, I at least want to make sure we can establish what gang everybody is in. Who's got Claude? Who's in the Claude gang? Anybody? All right. DeepSeek? Anybody going on the dark side yet? Got a few DeepSeek. All right, I see you. Anybody like all in on Mistral, the new OCR model, a little bit. Oh, so the rest of you guys chat GPT, see it? Ooh, all right. It's a good mix. I just pick the right tool for the job, frankly. That's what I like to say. But no, I am the Vice President of AI at Labcorp, and I want to tell you a little bit about our journey of how we, when you think about, generative AI and how challenging it is to take this emerging technology and then you kind of put it into something that is exceptionally difficult, like a regulated healthcare environment where if you make a mistake, you've committed a HIPAA violation. And so you have to manage all of these things correctly, and I think that hopefully you'll get a sense of how we're thinking about that and doing it and actually delivering real value with generative AI. A little bit about me: I have my PhD in biomedical engineering from the University of Tennessee. In 2009, my advisor sent me to the nuclear engineering department to take a class called neural networks, and we actually built neural networks that won a competition that year. I worked at there's a company called Zoll that makes a cardiac defibrillator, and I have a FDA-approved machine learning algorithm. It's actually a random forest, if you care about from back in the day. But making decisions between whether somebody is in a sudden cardiac arrest, VT or VF event, or a noise event. And I've worked at Change Healthcare in Silicon Valley, where stood up a team of data scientists, and currently I work at Labcorp. So the interesting job that I have is that we manage a team of really great data scientists that really could be working anywhere, and trying to balance that with the expectations of our executives who are thinking about how do we strategize around AI. So you have this high-functioning team that is moving so quickly, while at the same time, the executives and our business stakeholders within IT, within diagnostics, and everywhere else are all thinking about, how do we build a strategy around this? And then, suddenly, like next week, DeepSeek comes out, and you're like, all right, well, how do we? Every single week, it's something new that's coming out, and really, I think one of the really great things about our team is that we have our mission at Labcorp is improving health, improving lives, and I can genuinely say that our team, the data scientists we have on our team, are constantly thinking about, as we are doing the things that we are doing, how are they making an impact back to our patients? So there's a lot of administrative things that we focus on. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, but also at the same time, if you kind of think about that and talk about it, it's important. I think having a mission and where you want to go matters so much whenever you think about the technology that you have at your disposal. So within Labcorp, essentially what we've done is we've worked with our C-suite, and we've identified what are those big things we want to go after. Where do we want to point generative AI at first? It's a top-down approach, which really helped because, frankly, a few years ago, it was very easy. I'm sure a lot of you can, the people that have a background in data science can relate to the fact that we were a science fair experiment for so long, right? Like, it's like, oh, well, just, the PhDs are over there doing their thing. And now it's become front and center, and everyone has this very intense desire to make sure that we are doing the right thing with it. So we have the big thing that changed within Labcorp is last year our global leadership meeting was entirely AI focused, and so it was a top-down approach. Everyone had the education, everyone aligned on the strategy, and we identified key areas we wanted to go after. So if you're not one of the 5 areas, right? So if you're like on a marketing team, how do you get support for having people that have the skill in generative AI to be able to do those things? And that's where the other, our other approach came in, was around democratizing the AI solutions that we have. It's very easy for,
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
Hey guys, I have a huge favor. You have a lot of people coming in. Huge favor. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to inconvenience you. I apologize. If you have seats in the middle of the aisle that are open, could you all audience just move to the center? I'm sorry. Adam,
Yeah, no, you're good.
I'm sorry. I know it's inconvenient. I know it's inconvenient, but if we help these people out, and if you have a seat assigned to you, just raise your hand. We're going to fill every seat that we can. We can't put a few people under here if you don't mind sitting. Again, this is nice.
No, you're good. Yeah, no.
I don't know if you dealt with this before. I'm interrupted by more people.
I actually paid all the people that just came in to kind of fill in, just to make sure.
I don't know what you paid, but it was a lot. So.
I'm truly humble. Thank you. I do appreciate this. This is, I appreciate that the abstract resonated and the topics, and I appreciate everyone kind of moving in to clear some space.
Thank you all.
No, of course. And so the other way is like we have 65,000 people work at Labcorp, and we need to have everyone within our company being able to have access to these tools. So it's one thing to take it and point different GenAI solutions at things like I'll be honest, our main testing system is built on a mainframe. Like that's what's running the bulk of Labcorp, just the way United Airlines runs on a mainframe. So whenever you think about like, okay, how do we take something like Bedrock or ChatGPT and plug it into a 40-year-old mainframe, right? It gets very exciting to think about those things, but also you have to be thinking about how do you get it into the hands of everyone. We have patient service centers where people go and get their blood drawn. How do we deploy AI into those types of areas so that they can, the patient experience is just overall improved. So where we're starting at is we have kind of 5 areas that among a few, but there is a within hospital speak, there is a idea called revenue cycle management. Revenue cycle management means the people that go out and collect money. They're the ones that talk to the insurance companies to try to figure out how to get paid, and they are the ones that talk to patients whenever you have a patient bill that comes in. One of the really interesting things that happened in the lab space, if you care about lab operations in the United States, was that when COVID kind of ramped down, the hospitals were like, their margins became razor thin and the hospitals struggled. So a lot of the hospitals wanted to get rid of their hospital-based labs, and we were a good target for them to be able to sell those labs to us. And we would take over them because we have this entire network. But it's very hard to integrate 2 IT systems, 2 compendiums, everything else. So we spent a lot of time, we're using generative AI within, whenever we have a new hospital system, we have an agent that's able to look at what are the test menu that we have, because we have over 6,000 tests that we offer. And then this hospital system in Denver or something, and what tests are they offering, and how do we actually match those up? It's very nuanced. It comes down to like what genes are you considering, the reference ranges. There's so many components of it. We're using generative AI within our lab operations, within precision medicine. Then we have within Labcorp we have a pharma business that also helps clinical trials essentially, and so there's a lot of work that's going on in trying to improve the clinical trial experience using AI and generative AI. So we think that, I mean, if you stop and take a step back, you're like, there's so much opportunity in our space where we're just thinking about knowledge, right? Like even just, we're not like, we can talk about agents, but it's kind of like, where do you go first? So imagine having a RCM analyst so RCM is the word that's how we're getting paid, right? They're the ones that have to go and talk to the insurance companies. We get a claim that was denied. Well, why was that claim denied? We have to go in and look through a 10,000-page policy that was written by an insurance company, and it's written in human legalese, like clinical legalese, essentially. to say, well, you had an A1C test, but you had a vitamin D test on the same day, and you have a broken arm, so those things can't all coexist, denied, right? So imagine a agent of our company being able to ask for out of a knowledge base. And generally for us, most of our things are hosted in AWS. We do have some things in Azure. But being able to ask, well, what is that? How should that claim actually be paid? What does the insurance company actually say about what that means? You might say, well, that's a cool example of how to use generative AI in like a chatbot. But right now it takes somebody over 20 minutes to research and go through this policy and read it. We're doing thousands of these a day. We do I don't know the official cited number, but it's a few 100,000 specimens come into us every day. So the scale of something so simple of just speeding up the ability to review a claim of whether it had been denied or not has a huge impact on our ability to get ourselves paid. And then if we're getting payment from the insurer, that's also decreasing what goes back to the patient, that the patient has to pay. So, and then we think about, there's a lot of other things that we're doing with our variant scientist, just HR across the board. So I'm going to get a little bit more deeper as we talk through this, but general purpose. So we think about like using a off-the-shelf kind of ChatGPT, or in our case, we are generally going to lean more towards Claude, but we are using generative AI for content generation within marketing, for translation, for researching our competitors and competitive research and things like that. Interestingly, one of the things that we considered within our team was that we put out our annual earnings report. And if you're an investor, right? So if you're an investor or an analyst and you get Labcorp's 200-page investor relations report, what is the first thing you're going to do today? ChatGPT, the whole thing, right? Just dump the whole thing in. So we had the idea, we're like, well, if they're going to do that, we should do it first, so we know what they're going to ask. And I will say we actually tasked Claude 3.7 to go really deep, like try to be just a really mean investor and like give us every gotcha type question it could. And it was meaningful. It worked. So from that, then we start thinking about how do we instill, so that's kind of general purpose tooling, and then we start thinking about knowledge, and this is kind of as our journey evolves, right? This is where we think about our compendium, which is something that we've had within our ability to integrate with other health systems and hospital systems. And we have, there's so many different things that we're able to do with having access to knowledge and getting knowledge back to the people that need to use it as rapidly as they can. And then from there, then we start thinking about agent-based approaches. We've had agents that have been able to, we talked, using the payer policies, looking at insurance information. We actually have a lot of people that look at images all day, and we're starting to see early signs of research where we can look at things like different things within genetics and within variant science research and things like that. Yeah. 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 And you guys probably don't know what those acronyms mean anyway, so I think we're good. Thank you for that, though. With all that being said, and the team really balances being able to do things, before we get into ethics, I think the team really balances being able to do things very quickly in some of the quick strike applications. So interestingly enough, we acquired a company called Invitae, and Invitae is a genetic testing platform. And one of the things that we had to do when we onboarded Invitae was be able to take their different genes that they have in their panels. And one of the Invitae genetic panels has 500 genes associated with it. And each gene has multiple disorders that they are trying to assess the credibility of whether a patient is susceptible to that condition or not. We also have a 500 gene panel with thousands of different conditions. And then on top of that, each of those payer policies we talked about earlier, each of those describe in a very complicated way whether they cover that gene and that disorder along the way. So we had, and to point all this off, a genetic test is very expensive. We don't want to give a genetic test without a prior authorization. We want to know that it's going to be reimbursed before that the test is offered. So, and this is a critical deal in the evolution of us being able to close the deal with Invitae and be able to launch them into our platform. So we were able to take these payer policies, the NCCN guidelines, which is the set of guidelines for how different cancers are diagnosed, and bounce those against the payer policies and write the actual rules for whether we get approved through a prior authorization or not, load those in, and literally take something that would have taken us many hours, many months to do, and truncate it down to a week or two. We've been able to do other things where we're looking at within lab equipment, there are very strict guidelines for how you need to operate that lab equipment, the temperature, the cycles, whether you can handle frozen specimens, what type of containers, all these things are loaded in these different lab manuals. And as part of one of our clinical trial efforts, we had to have all those things cataloged in a very specific way. And something that would have taken at least 4,000 man hours to actually do, we were able to truncate down into a very short period of time. So just across the board, as we are building these different applications, we are able to turn them around and deploy them. So we do also, one of the big things in working in a healthcare company is that we had to be very thoughtful for how we think about how we do this ethically. And we have an AI ethics board that's co-chaired by AI and our chief of compliance. And it is a collaborative board that there's kind of a risk-based intake for the thing that you're trying to do. And we base everything on fairness, privacy, transparency, accountability, and safety. Interestingly, this was actually the White House's AI Bill of Rights until like 2 or 3 months ago maybe, and it just got... But no, I think it's a valuable framework, and whenever you think about this, the first thing you would think of is, oh God, going and talking to the attorneys, this is going to take so much time and slow us down. But the way we've built it, it hasn't at all. It's been a collaborative effort, and I think that's one of the most important things is that, especially when you think about building generative AI applications that are interacting with patients, which is like that is a thing that we are doing. You can't hide this. This has to be part of the program. It has to be front and center. So we have done this by having an ethics code and an AI ethics board. We're able to do risk-based assessments for is the thing that we're doing right and proper, and then the things that don't get a review by our ethics board to make sure that we actually are doing the right thing. And it's a very collaborative environment that we've kind of created. There's a different stat that's presented every time. It's really hard to keep up with the current stats, but like the things that we've learned at Labcorp is that we're on one hand, we are a cutting edge company that is, we have a ton of researchers that are putting out different testing and, with our science and technology and other things. But then at the same time, we have a lot of our processes and a lot of the things they've existed for a long time. We're a 50-year-old company. And so you have this kind of things that are very cutting edge and things that are very traditional as we kind of build our things out. And I've been at Labcorp for almost 5 years at this point. I can remember some of the early meetings when I walked in and I'm like, hey guys, I'm from the AI team. And they're like, what? We're not talking to you. And it's evolved so much because of like, there's that need to build up the trust with the people that know they know how to do the thing. They know how to build they know how to do the operational thing. So we've trained literal medical directors, people that are reviewing, medical necessity and things like that, and trained them on how to write prompts and partner with us. And that helps so much with the change management component, where you actually are trying to say, okay, well, we think we can do this from an AI perspective, and they have to be like, well, we would never let you respond to patients on your own without somebody reviewing it. But as you kind of build up those proof points, and then you also kind of show the folks how it works, it's been a huge advantage for us we focus on change management, we focus on culture, and then, the last piece is really, you think about how do you actually integrate into these IT systems that exist and how challenging that can be. So we try to diversify our portfolio when we think about things that are coming in, so that we are working on applications that are, changing some core IT process, but then also at the same time looking at kind of more greenfield. Maybe it's deploying an agent that might sit at somebody's desk that's doing like phlebotomy work or things like that. So I did want to think a little bit about just a little bit of my own personal view on where everything is going, and where I don't think people are thinking forward enough yet on. And so it's an interesting dynamic. I think that we're starting to grasp what we can do with with having access to agents and knowledge bases and things like that. But frankly, there's so many, I don't even think we've scratched the surface on what multimodal is going to mean for us. We're still trying to figure out what we can do from coding and automated testing and all these really good applications of generative AI. But then it's I think of all the genetics and all these different signals that come off of our instruments. That's all multimodal. And some of the things that we've seen in kind of our more research side have been just crazy impressive, with being able to take images and make, quasi-diagnosis on them. So I would not lose sight. I think it's going to be interesting as we think about what multimodal means, when we think about deploying images, audio, video, biomedical signals. Those all come into play. Apparently they really want me at this meeting, huh? The reasoning, all the things with reasoning, with deep research and thinking, and with ChatGPT is done and DeepSeek and things like that, are just, they're opening up a new paradigm that I don't think we've even realized all of the different use cases we can go after. And then it comes into I think these first two kind of come into play whenever before, a very IT question was build versus buy. And now it's well, we need to find the systems that we have should have access to different tooling, like Salesforce as an example, or Workday. We'd want those things to have generative AI capabilities built in. But there's not you can't call up a vendor and be hey, I would like a deep reasoning model that's going to do this thing for my lab system, and right. It's just these things don't exist. So I think it's so important to think about, where are we going next? How do we take advantage of these different capabilities? And then the build versus buy thing kind of comes into well, we should have those applications there in the tooling that we're using, and then allow people to be able to prompt within those to build agents and things like that. Just real quickly, my team, we have a bunch of data scientists. We've done a bunch of things that put them into production. They're an amazing team. I won't say any of their names because they're really great, and I don't want anyone to poach them. But we publish and everything else. But find me on LinkedIn. I will say one last thing. My own personal anecdote of DeepSeek. My 6-year-old has a Power Wheels, and the wheels on it are really expensive for some reason. There's a run on the plastic wheels that run a Power Wheels car, like a 12-volt Power Wheels car. So somebody had created a way to 3D print a connector to a lawnmower wheel and trade out the plastic wheel. So I printed it, and then it just sheared off immediately. So I went to DeepSeek, and I'm hey, here's what happened. Here's the spec of the wheel. Here's the spec of the motor from the Power Wheels. design a 3D printed thing that I can 3D print and create. So went through like DeepSeek went like 45 pages, like described everything, like the temperature, it put steel rods in the design, so there's like holes where steel rods need to go, and generated everything in OpenCAD, perfect, rendered it, perfect, like completely perfect fit. So that's my own. I would love to tell you more about some of like the other crazy things we're doing at Labcorp with the like more research side. But just a kind of a fun example of instead of writing, I use it to write snarky emails too, but a fun application from DeepSeek. We have 2 minutes, and I want to be respectful of time, but I'll take 1 or 2 questions. Yeah, we are wildly concerned about it. The interesting thing is we have an application that's going into production next week that is reviewing patient inquiries and generating responses so that an agent will have something kind of curated up front. I think the other part of that question, though, that I think doesn't get asked is like, what's the benchmark? Like, how bad are the humans that are doing it today? And have we measured that piece to compare apples to apples? I think it's very easy to be like, well, look, it hallucinated, it got it wrong. And I'm like, I can't even turn off my WebEx to not, like we make so many errors throughout the day that it's like, I think the other side of that question truly is like, if we're going to evaluate AI, it should be evaluated fairly against the human counterpart. And I think that's skipped often. Like I see it like, my LinkedIn feed is so much just AI everything, and I see at least like 5 hallucination posts a day, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's just because you don't know how to prompt. That's your fault. Like, but no, I think it's so important to us, and we spend so much time looking at guardrails, but also the other part is though we actually evaluate the human to the AI, so we can actually say, well, compared to these 2 things, this is what it looks like. And by the way, when we're responding to patients, and they're like, people have bad days, people. They want to shortchange their responses and everything else. Generative AI it's like they're high NPS scores because like it's every single response always comes from a place of empathy. Like there's not an agent that's having a bad day. All right, one last question.
All right, you mentioned like the IT part, and then there's the OT, the operational technology part. So how many years before human phlebotomists, or how do you say that word, aren't required to extract blood and know what a fight is saying? When do you think a robot's going to do that, or a cobot's going to do that?
Sign me up. I'll do it. I'll put my arm in. Like just go.
How many years out?
How many times has somebody had like a human in there digging around in the hospital and like can't find the vein and everything? Like let's compare the human to the robot, right? Thank you guys so much. This is great. I appreciate everything. Thank you.